All right, Mike.
That's definitely going to be the last one I play. Sorry.
No, yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. Well, we could talk about it on the show, though. Yeah. All right. Let me do the countdown. We could talk about it probably on the top if you want. All right. 5, 4, 3. It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where we decide everything about the world of games, so you don't have to think for yourself. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is Victory Royael champion.
It's me, Mike Minotti.
So you got your like.
I do wish we had something cooler to call it than Victory Royale, like winner chicken dinner.
Yeah, I think I do prefer winner chicken dinner in terms of turn. Victory Royale's not bad though. Yeah, I don't think it's bad. It's better than like just like not having anything. So like right before the show.
I'd like to say you win.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, right before the show, like we're waiting to start because Mike's gonna play Fortnite. He's like, yeah, right after this round, and he's taking so long. I'm like, did he start another round? What's going on here? And then he comes back and he's like, I won. So I'm like, all right. So that's your first solo win in Fortnite, right?
Yeah, I had my first squad win earlier, but that was fun. But I was playing with people who like haven't played
right.
Before, my friends. They were kind of carrying me along.
I definitely get the sense that people talk about like, oh, I got my first solo win. It's like that's the first like real time.
Right.
So when did this all start? When did this Fortnite thing happen?
Well, yeah, right. I know because I haven't been playing anything on PC except for like Blizzard games forever.
Mm-hmm.
You tried to get me into PUBG, but it didn't really take with me. Well, you know how I just built the new computer
right.
A couple weeks ago, right before GDC, and a couple of my friends were playing Fortnite because everybody has friends who are playing Fortnite now.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was like, well, let's just see what Fortnite looks like on this computer, and I was playing with them, and I was like, hey, this is like the parts of PUBG I understand without the parts I didn't understand. So I was kind of able to get into it a little easier, and the building it's definitely a layer of like complexity, but I was also able to kind of comprehend that pretty quickly. Plus, I had friends who were playing it. My brother's playing it too now, so I had a lot of people to play it with. So I was just kind of messing around. Then when I got back from GDC and I was just playing a bit, this was my kind of first round going some solo. I was just killing time waiting for you, and I got a little lucky because I was able to get a purple sniper rifle, which they're strong and you don't have to reload between every shot like some of the other ones.
Right.
So I was kind of like in a low populated areas where I started. Then I kind of just made my way towards the circles. I'll get a couple of sniper kills here and there. I had like 3 kills going at the end. Then I just kind of got to the largest hill, built a big tower. Guy kind of slowly made his way toward me with a shotgun. Then when he kind of got close and I saw where he was, but he didn't know where I was, I just dropped down and was able to kind of surprise him and win.
Huh. So he was like running on the ground, or was he like running on like a pre-made?
Yeah, well, I couldn't see his approach. For some reason he was able to sneak up, but I saw him like hugging the side of the base of my tower.
Okay.
And so I knew where he was. He didn't know where I was, so I was able to drop down, get the first shot in with my shotgun, and then as long as I didn't miss a bunch, which shockingly I didn't, I was able to win.
So that game was already huge, and then it feels like it got like. It feels like it got twice as big in like the last 2 weeks, and now mobile's going to help with that for sure. But now it feels like just everyone is playing it.
It's just so fascinating to me how, like, this game was made to chase a very old trend. Mm-hmm. They were like hilariously late to it.
And this is in 2011. This is like when they're like announcing Fortnite originally.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna have a zombie mode game. It's like, yeah.
With Minecraft crafting, yeah.
Yeah. Then they're just like suddenly able like, this is popular, we'll do this. It's so funny. Like, I don't even know what a zombie looks like in Fortnite. Right? Like, that's a thing. Like, there's a loading screen. It's like the Fortnite people on a hill, and like zombie arms are reaching out them, and I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be
that
zombie.
Game. Yeah. So yeah, then they're like, okay, let's go chase PUBG, and I think what happened is they just got on consoles first, and consoles as big as PUBG was on Steam, consoles are just so much bigger in terms of like a broader audience.
Yeah,
it's like, at least in the United States and Canada and Europe, and that's where Fortnite's just dominating.
And I do think it was something I said when we first played PUBG. I was like, oh, I really get the appeal of this. I can't wait till like a more polished studio makes a game like this. And it's Epic Games. They kind of know how to use their own engine to make a pretty like relatively stable game. Right? Like this game's already running pretty well. something that PUBG I haven't played in a while, but it was still struggling with it a little bit.
Oh yeah, back then it was tough.
So I also just kind of like the pace of it more. I like that it's a smaller map.
Right, it's very fast.
Vehicles. It's faster paced.
Yeah,
you don't have like as much intense inventory management, but then you still have the building stuff that like, so that it's not literally just running around shooting people, right? So there is a layer to it. So I know I feel like a big trend follower right now, but I don't know why all of a sudden that. It's funny because like I play popular games all the time, but like in this era, I do feel like I'm playing like the popular game. Right? Like,
I know, I get that.
Like I was playing Overwatch before, I was real edgy.
Yeah, I mean, there is like this. I think a small part of me that's just like, I don't want to really go get into all that because I've already played the real game. I don't need to go play this other one that's just coming after it. And, like all the casuals are into that, and that's like a very like shitty small part of my brain that's just like, no, that's stupid. The game, there's something to it. Yeah, I don't quite enjoy it as much. Like when I play it, I've said this on Twitter that like I don't feel anything. And I think what it is, and I played 500 or more hours of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and I'm just sort of numb, I think, now to a game that is doing that, but with less tension. There's less tension for me. At least there's definitely still tension, but it's just it's downgraded because it's so fast, and it's not really about like sneaking around. Like no one tries to be stealthy in Fortnite.
Stealth is a much less important aspect.
Right? Yeah, you're not trying to hide. You're trying, like when you see someone, you build.
I will say, like PUBG can get very tense, like even in kind of the earlier game sections.
Exactly.
Like the tension in Fortnite is like when you're in the final. Like,
right,
10,
and
of course you're like, oh, now we got something going on here.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's that's still totally great, but it's like it's not throughout the match, so that I'm missing that. But at the same time, I get why people like it more than PUBG, especially. Like I get it for sure.
Right. It is interesting that we kind of have our two games, and I wonder if it's gonna be like how it was with MOBAs, right? Where
it does feel like
two, and you would occasionally have like the third place, like your Smites or whatever. Really, there's only Smite was like the one real notable third place kind of. There was like on at one point. Heroes of Newerth was real early.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people remembered Heroes of Newerth, but
and God, a couple others tried to get in that third place spot, and it never worked out for them. But I do feel like that is probably how it's going to work here. I think there's still a chance that like if the PUBG cheater situation doesn't get figured out, or if they can't figure out a content pipeline to keep adding stuff while also fighting cheaters, which is I think what their big issue right now is they're so preoccupied fighting cheaters that they don't have time to add in all this new stuff. In the meantime, Fortnite is getting new stuff all the time, and it feels like it's getting all this attention that PUBG's not. When it's like, okay, well, it just doesn't have the cheating problem quite yet. It will, but it doesn't yet.
Well, Epic Games had a whole team that was working on some other game that they were just able to be like, hey, you're going to work on this.
Exactly. Yeah. And even it's like, even if Fortnite's not making like the most money in the world either, it is totally. But even if it wasn't, it's like that's not even Epic's profit motive. The motive here is to build a game that forces Epic to like refine its tools so it can sell those tools to other developers with the Unreal Engine, and that's been a great thing for them to do through all these games that they've been working on. Paragon was about that. I mean, Unreal Tournament was like actually completely free, at least as far as Epic was going.
What was that? Rage? Remember Rage?
That was that was id. Yeah.
What am I thinking of? Has that just been Unreal Tournament and Gears of War with Unreal lately? I guess.
Yeah, I think that was Unreal was like the first like big PC one they did after Gears.
Remember when like Cliffy B was like really attached to Fortnite at first?
Yeah.
Like he announced it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange.
And
poor guy.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, for real. Poor guy.
It's got to be kind of rough watching Fortnite become the most popular thing in the world, and like 10 people are playing your game.
God damn. Yeah, I tried to play that game the other day. I couldn't even.
Really?
I couldn't get it to work. Yeah.
Wow.
It was.
It's shocking how. What was it called again? So people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, good point. Well, we were just talking about Fortnite, and now we're talking about. It's going to come to me, Mike. I swear to God. Lawbreakers. Lawbreakers. Yeah. And then, so
the gravity laws is what they're breaking.
Yeah. It is. That was a rough thing. I was like, I couldn't even. I think someone checked for me. I was doing it on stream, and someone's like, yeah, I think it says 2 people are playing this according to Steam thing.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that is
How does
actually.
something fall off that fast?
We're in an era where that can happen. Like, it's never been like this before, where a game could come out with that much of a marketing push and cost $30 from a named developer, and just completely miss its mark to the point where everyone knows to avoid it because none of my friends are playing, and I need to be where my friends are. Yeah, I don't know. My thing is like, how does a game like Rainbow Six Siege, which is another game I'm playing, how does that happen where it can miss the mark at the start and then slowly build up over time to the point where it's this huge thing?
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened with Fortnite, but it wasn't as Fortnite was very sudden. Like, here's the new game mode. It's free, and it's yeah. That's real interesting what happened with Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
Yeah, nuts, man.
We should we'll get into some other stuff real quick. Let's do these notes that we should always do, but we kind of got into Fortnite there. That's fine.
I was still like really excited.
Yeah, I'm glad we could talk about it.
I know there's gonna be some people like, well, unless your win rate is like 10%, that you're really not good. No, for now, let me feel this and enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, first, you can get more from me and Mike at GamesBeat.com. If you have something to share with us, email the podcast, games+podcast@VentureBeat.com. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, there's an audio version. You can get that wherever pods are caught. If you like the show, rate us on Apple Podcast if that's the one you use, because that helps the show grow. Other than Fortnite, what else you been playing, Mike?
Well, I was at GDC last
You were
week.
at GDC.
Which is a whole thing. There's a lot to talk about there. You were actually playing like a big game though, but it's a new release. Why don't we talk about that first? I guess.
Yeah, sure thing.
I want to hear about Far Cry.
Take a drink of my water, and then I'm gonna tell you all about Far Cry 5.
So I guess my question is, I'm somebody who I like the series. I played Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, 4, and Primal, and like right after Primal, I was like, man, I am burned out on this. I can't imagine coming back to this unless something really interesting happened. Is Far Cry 5 interesting enough for me to care? My inclination is not to care.
That it's a tough question. I think that you probably are going to be able to get away with not caring about this game. You in that particular circumstance. If anyone who played Far Cry Primal, I think if you were playing that many Far Cry games that you actually picked up and played Primal, you could probably skip this one unless the setting really appeals to you. I do think that so this one, the thing is it's set in America, and it's still set up very much like Far Cry 3 and 4, where it is about these insurgent groups of competing locals who have started this weird cult thing, and they are fighting against the other indigenous people, which is, in this case it's American people, to control that space and make it like just about this cult, and they sort of echo very extreme, like the American extremist groups, like the Branch Davidians or whatever, like the Waco event. It feels a lot like that. And I think they miss on a lot of that setup, but in terms of setting it in America and making it look like the American Mountain West, it's Montana specifically, they get a lot of that right. It's like it's big sky, it's open fields, and then there are these forested areas with rivers with like fishing signs that look very familiar, and the advertisements look right.
It is just to see a AAA game that's in America not take place in like one of the big cities, or
exactly
like a parody of one of the big cities.
Right. Yeah. You'll stumble across a sandlot baseball field, and it's like, okay, I recognize this. I've seen this in my real life, and it looks exactly like this. They got this right. I've driven through small towns that look just like this, and I've seen a strip club that looks just like this one, like that kind of stuff.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, of course I have, Mike. Of course.
Multiple times.
But it still is in many ways uninteresting because they don't really take a lot of those things to their logical extreme. It is very much just set dressing, and it's there to enable a crazy cult leader to be all wild at you up in the first person mode where his face is in your face and he's talking all crazy and singing Amazing Grace or whatever.
They're really going against their formula there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it all serves that purpose of what has been the Far Cry formula. And at the same time, I wrote the review, and I'm in a weird spot with like reviews right now because I'm thinking like, okay, this game is a well-made game. It is the best made Far Cry so far, They have streamlined everything, and I never played a ton of the Far Cry games. I played enough of all of them to get an idea.
You played Blood Dragon, right?
That's the one I played the most of, actually. So yeah, Blood Dragon's great. But in terms of like the moment-to-moment gameplay, it is the most streamlined it's ever been. It is, I guess what I mean by that is like picking up weapons and looting. All that stuff's very, very quick. But also, you move from objective to objective really naturally. There's not a lot of stuff in the way of or preventing you from doing that. You don't have to go climb a bunch of towers to unlock stuff in an area. It's just nice, and it feels great, and all that stuff works really well, and I recognize that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like 85 out of 100. That sounds like a good score for this game, but then I'm like thinking, it's not an excited 85 out of 100. It is a I am respecting and acknowledging its quality and how well it's put together and what Ubisoft is doing here. And I see the potential for them to really play around in this space. They have this arcade mode where they can sort of just throw in all kinds of wacky stuff and set it in the Far Cry engine and just let it loose on this huge player base. And they also turn those tools over to the community, and the community can make that stuff and do things as well. There's a lot of stuff that can happen with this game, and I'm like, I see that potential. But I'm not excited about it in the way that I am about like just maybe some weird broken stuff that I'm finding on Steam Early Access. Like I'm, even that Eco game I was playing a little bit ago. That's like it's in Early Access. It's unfinished. It's broken half the time, but it's doing stuff that is so new and so so different that it's like I can get a lot more excited about that. And
well, I mean, it's not like you hate these AAA shooter things because you loved Wolfenstein too.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
always kind of similar to this.
Yes, exactly.
In some ways, right?
Yes, yeah, and it's like okay, well, and what the difference there is Wolfenstein 2. What it was doing that was new and exciting was this story that was bold and willing to say things and willing to call out like American people as potentially villainous. In a way that video games never have and are afraid to, and Far Cry 5 is a perfect example of that fear, of that cowardice to really commit to what you're trying to say with your game. And so the story misses, but like the gameplay isn't on an equivalent exciting level of Wolfenstein 2 or whatever. It is a more refined version of the thing we've been playing for a long time. I think the reason this is a weird time, I think, is because I do look around and I do see everyone playing Fortnite, and people are taking chances on new franchises and new games and new experiences that aren't Call of Duty, that aren't just the same stuff over and over again, that's not just Far Cry. And I think I'm like starting to realize, okay, I think people are really looking for new experiences in video gaming, and maybe that's not Far Cry, but it's still well made.
It's pretty rough when you get to whatever 5.
Yes,
isn't
it is. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, it's a good game. It is. I'm not going to take that away from it. I just think that I don't know if another Far Cry could ever excite me. Maybe they could.
Maybe
but
Blood Dragon 2.
Okay, now we're talking.
If it was just tell me more. Blood Dragon 2. Oh yeah, give me that. Yeah. Let me run that on this new PC. I would be a happy boy. But
yeah. So that was Far Cry 5 we're talking about. I'm gonna keep playing it a little bit on the PC. I was playing on PlayStation 4 for review. We got the PC code later. I'm gonna kind of see it through and try some other stuff, and maybe dive harder into the arcade and the co-op stuff and kind of see how I feel about all that. But I would tell people that it is if you think you are into traditional big AAA open world games, still. This one is one of the most refined versions of those, as long as you're not worried about the story. As long as you don't care about the story, because you won't care about this story.
It's not like Far Cry 4 had a memorable story.
Exactly.
Either,
yes,
right?
But I mean,
if you like that, then hey, sure.
Exactly. So yes, if you came out of that game saying like I didn't care about the story, but I was doing all these things, and I was flying a plane and I jumped out and I did this and that, you're going to be able to tell those stories and more in this game, because it does that stuff even better. So. Another game I've been playing, Sea of Thieves. Did you put any time with this?
I just kind of started it and walked around. I can tell you I played the beta, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not like enthusiastically jumping into it. I feel
Yeah.
like I played this game
I think
already.
you did, yes.
Yeah, but the weird thing that stuck out with me when I was playing the full game is some of the presentation inconsistency. Like, it's a gorgeous game, right? The water looks good, you know, the colors are beautiful, and then like the music is very clearly synthesized, and not even like very well synthesized. It just sounds cheap. Like, oh, the voice acting is clearly done by people who worked in the studio. Like, right? It's like these weird little like cheap moments where I'm like, what? This? Who made this again? Rare? They're owned by Microsoft, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those inconsistencies. I think it feels like the water is the most beautiful thing ever. The attention
Water
to
is a game.
yes, yeah, water of the year. It is the lighting is gorgeous. Like the way it reflects off of, like water on the deck, not just on the sea. It's beautiful. And then you go and you like actually play the game, and it feels like there was no attention to detail paid to what you're actually doing in terms of these missions. They are very basic.
It's the thing everybody feared and everybody said. Everyone's like, no, there's going to be progression. It's well, what do you just keep finding, you know, treasure, bringing it back, and do it over? And for people who've been playing this a lot, it sounds like that is kind of it. There's not a very it's kind of the anti Monster Hunter world. It sounds like to me, like Monster Hunter World works because it does have this absolutely incredible progression loop, right?
Right.
Where after each mission, you get a little better here. You get this cool new looking thing. You unlock this, you unlock that, but you don't have quite enough, so you want to go out there and do more. Doesn't sound like there's really anything pushing you like that in this, except like raise your rep with these 3 factions and something happens maybe.
So my thing about this game, I think, is what are they trying to do? I mean, they are coming into a world where it feels like every gamer and every developer and every publisher just came to a truce on cosmetic upgrades are going to be the thing we pay for. They are this thing that we're going to pretend is not I can't say this word, integral, important to the game play itself. It is this reward on the side, and you can get it through grinding in the game, but you probably should just pay, give the developer some extra money, and get this stuff on the side because it doesn't really matter. And then Sea of Thieves comes out and says, that's pretty much all you're going to be going after. There is no way you're not going to be putting points into your character to have a better character. You're not going to be you're not going to be spending money on better weapons that can hold more ammunition. It is all sideways progression where it's just going to look different. And I don't know how that works in 2018.
I mean, yeah, it works for something like a battle royale game because you're starting from scratch every single game.
Right.
That's the point of, yeah, this is. I guess they were just like convinced this game's not going to have any RPG elements. It's just so hard to make a persistent like multiplayer online game that doesn't have RPG elements.
It also feels like it's not just it's hard, but it's also a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like if we've learned anything from all these games over all the huge games that come to your tongue when you're like, what's been cool recently? It has been PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and Fortnite and Monster Hunter World and Dark Souls and all these games, or like Minecraft even, where it's like these are very complex games that demand the player learn the systems and Destiny, like you're gonna have to go spend time there and grind with your friends and catch up and get gear and spec in a certain way, and be not just important to your teammates or important to your crew because of your skills, but because of the way that you've built your character. And people love that for a reason, and it's because it gives them ownership over the experience in a way that I think Sea of Thieves is completely opposed to.
Yeah, and it's just even just like the avatar options when you start, right? Like it's so bizarre to me that you would make some kind of like, large multiplayer game like this with pirates who are, known for having a lot of extravagant costumes and all these different looks. And you just like pick through one of like 6 or so avatars.
Yeah, I mean, you can re-roll those and make them random again, but you're not designing your own character. You're not.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Is that what's even happening there? It's just like those aren't That's so weird.
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
realize that's what it was.
Yeah, it's just randomly generated, and there's a button there to like, oh, re-roll pirates, basically. I don't know what it says.
Re-roll pirates. Why don't I just get to pick all the things?
Right, exactly. Why not? I don't know. Like how do they get so many of these other things right, and then just I think completely fudge what could be the game here?
I think their like big like buzz phrases when they were making this game was, players are gonna make their own fun, and they all really bought into that philosophy, and I can understand why that sounds exciting and interesting.
Yeah, me too.
But there's got to be a little bit more help from the game itself, right?
Yeah, I think my thing is whenever I think of making my own fun, it is always with the veneer of we are working towards this other thing. Like the game tricks you into thinking like you're doing some quest or some mission or trying to upgrade something. But really, it's either you're improving or you are goofing off with your friends, and that's the stuff that keeps you actually coming back, even if you don't realize it. You're like, oh, well, I can go put some more points into my character. Okay, well, yeah, that's fun, that's fine, but really, the only reason you're going to keep coming back is because of all these peripheral experiences, and they forgot that core, that pillar that serves as like the post that holds up the whole thing. To the point where I'm like, I don't even know if this. I mean, I see the potential. I just don't think I like it.
I just love that. Like 2 years ago, if you had asked me if like when Sea of Thieves like came out, I would just be holding it up against the new Monster Hunter game. Like, in shame. It's a beautiful industry.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time. I mean. There's
the winners, the people who are the winners and the losers right now are just so crazy.
Yes.
It's fun. Like Capcom's doing great.
Yeah, like, Capcom's having the best time ever. Like it's making the most money ever. It's okay. What? How did that happen? How did we end up here?
Monster Hunter.
Yeah. Wait, not any other game. Monster Hunter. They have a million games, and that's the one. I mean, God, I guess.
To be fair, everything else is doing like Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, it's doing good, but
Street Fighter 5's doing well now.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel vs. Capcom, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, even Street Fighter's like not doing as well as Dragon Ball Fighters right now, but we'll see how that works out over time. But for right now,
Mega Man 11 though,
but yeah,
that's where it's all gonna be at.
Oh yeah, the bestseller. It's gonna put Grand Theft Auto 5 down. Yep.
Oh man.
I don't know. So. For Sea of Thieves, I think I'll probably try it a couple more times, but this is Microsoft's chance to really prove that they're serious about these live services games. This is something Phil Spencer was saying he actually said this in a couple of interviews across a couple of E3s now, where he's like, oh, well, we're not really investing in traditional games anymore because if you look at what people are playing, they're going on and they're spending all their time in one game, like they're just playing Minecraft. Or they're just playing, and this is like when PUBG was just coming out, or they announced it was going to become an Xbox One. Like, oh, they're just playing that. So we're trying to think about how we can approach that stuff. And meanwhile, this is when Sony's releasing all of their huge first-party games, and PlayStation 4 was kind of shooting ahead because of that. Because like everyone's like, oh, look at this library. So it's like, okay, you're not doing the first-party games. You're going to do this games as a service thing for the Xbox. That's fine. But then really commit to that and show us that you're like, if a game like Sea of Thieves comes out and everyone says it has potential, but it's not a game I want to play right now, really focus on it. Do what Ubisoft has done with Rainbow Six Siege and show us that over the next year or two, you can continue to improve it to the point where the people that stick with it are going to be like, we told you, and me, or someone like me who's probably not going to look at it again for a while after maybe one or two more times, is going to say, wow, I really missed out here. I'm going to go back and I need to actually see what this is all about.
Or they could do like Destiny 2 and release a lot of pictures of roadmaps.
Yes, they could do that.
That'd be fun too.
Yes, I really think in terms of the roadmap game, people are just, no one can keep up with what Bungie's done. Yeah. Yeah, it's just they're so far ahead in that space.
Bungie chasing Capcom's Monster Hunter World right now.
Oh God, man, what is happening?
I love it. Hey, want to hear about some of the things I did play at
Yeah, tell me what your non-Fortnite stuff was, or all your GDC stuff.
Yeah, so it's not a big demo thing, right? There's a lot of talks.
No, it's not that kind of show.
Some talks are pretty good though. The ones I do in co-op, I always like the postmortems, especially on the older games.
I like the way you said that because you definitely implied that some of the talks weren't good.
Well, some of them are very technical. Like there was a talk. It was from Pixar. I was like, oh, cool. It was like Pixar is going to talk about how it uses real-time graphics to help it. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I can maybe follow this. No, wow, that was way. It was just like it may as well have been like a lecture hall in like a fourth year like computer animation class. I had no idea what was happening.
That's really fun.
Yeah. But the postmortem on Sonic the Hedgehog was a lot of fun. There's some cool stories about like the early days of like figuring out that character and like how they came up with like a weird backstory for him. Like not the Madonna one that we all heard where like he had a girlfriend, but like this weird story about how there was a fighter, there was like a pilot, like a jet pilot, and he painted the nose of his airplane to look like a hedgehog, and he had a hedgehog emblem on his jacket, and then he married a children's storybook author who wrote Sonic the Hedgehog as like a children's book. So I like this bizarre idea that Sonic the Hedgehog is a fiction within a fiction, right? It's like Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the NBA Jam postmortem was also super fun. Just learning about like that game and just the wackiness of the 90s
Right.
and all the weird licensing and stuff there. But probably the best talk was Yoko Taro's Nier talk. He did it with a guy from Platinum Games, and I interviewed both of them too. That should be going up sometime this week. It was a very fun interview. But it was cool because I always heard like people were like, "Oh, Yoko Taro's weird." And you see him with a mask, and you believe that. But he's also very nice and like kind of funny, you know. A lot of self-deprecating humor, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, that's nice. It always kind of puts you on an even keel when you're able to like get in a conversation with someone like that.
Yeah, but they had a very funny talk. Like at the end of it, instead of taking questions from the audience, they prepared a Q&A for each other, and they had little like cartoon characters themselves asking each other questions, and they would answer it. And they do this for like
awesome.
10 minutes. And then the next slide is just like the Platinum guy asking Totoro, "Does drinking help you write a video game?" The answer was yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. I would hope so. Yeah, based on the Nier Automata.
Well, what he said was the things he writes while he drinks, people seem to like better. So yeah, so there were some fun talks. I think the coolest thing I played was I got to go to like the Nintendo Nindies event where they had a lot of those games playable.
Yeah, man, that was a good event. There's a lot of cool games announced. Some stuff that's older that I would be happy to have on my Switch again. Mark of the Ninja in particular comes to mind.
Sure, and playing Luminous for Switch was really cool.
Right.
That was funny because they gave me 6 Joy-Cons to like place around me to vibrate. They had like 2 attached to like some elastic belt that I put on. They put 2 in my pockets, and then they told me to sit on the other 2.
Yeah, this is a I was gonna say Meteos because that's another game from that same developer.
I wish.
I know. Hopefully, Luminous is the game that came out like when the PSP launched, and it's this music puzzle game.
That's the last time I played it. Too.
Yeah,
it was PSP. Yeah, but it's cool.
And it was like was that the one that supported the trans vibrator as well? Like the trans.
It's like that and Res.
Yeah.
Things, I think.
So it's like a bodysuit of like controllers you could wear that would vibrate along with the music, and yeah, I always think it sounds filthy when people first bring it up, but I mean, it's because it is. Of course it is. No,
we know where you're putting that.
Yeah, we know.
But the one I really liked was The Messenger, which is this kind of Ninja Gaiden inspired retro game, which is kind of doing for Ninja Gaiden what I think Shovel Knight did for like Mega Man and Castlevania, right? Where it's like that 8-bit plus, where it's like inspired by that, but it like has a lot more colors and details than they really could do there without being 16-bit.
It's like they released the new Nintendo Entertainment System instead of Super Nintendo, right? Yeah.
So it's just this really like fluid, good feeling game that looks gorgeous. It kind of has those mechanics that are like Ninja Gaiden, but it's got its own stuff going on. One thing that's really neat is you can't do your double jump unless you attack something in midair, like connect with it.
Okay.
So cool. There's like a lot of like, you like make sure you hit this enemy right here, or this like orb right here, or this wait for the enemy to throw a star and then jump up and hit the star, and then jump again. And then it actually game gets more complicated. Like he showed me like there's kind of like a halfway point where you think the game ends, and you gotta go. Then you like travel to the future, and then everything looks a lot more 16-bit-ish. And you can kind of like travel between these two realms. You start going back to the old areas, and you realize that the game's a bit like more Metroidvania-y than you thought it was. So yeah, it seems like there's things there.
That seems like that hits all of the sweet spots. That sounds really awesome. Huh.
I really do think this is a like. Look, if you like Shovel Knight, this is something to be excited about.
Yeah, okay.
It's definitely in that vein.
When's that coming out? Now?
It's just this year.
Ugh.
Sometime this year.
God, that's a game I could just like go. I could just leave this podcast right now and go play all of it. It sounds very good. What else? What else happened with GDC?
Well, real quick, Sony's been a lot of it's weird because like, a lot of the games are just like here's Shadow of the Colossus and things that are out, but they did have Guacamelee too.
That is.
So I got to play that.
Yeah, that's so. That was a Metroidvania style game, and now that they've announced the sequel, definitely coming to Switch as well as PlayStation 4. Was that one of the first ones it was announced for? Or?
Well, I played it on PlayStation 4, so I think so. I mean, yeah, the first game was on all those platforms,
right.
But so it was really fun. Like, it's weird because this one's made for like up to 4 players co-op, and at least from the demo I was in, it was hard to get much of a Metroidvania sense of it. Like, again, it was just a kind of a short demo, but it played pretty linear. But like the animation and stuff was really cool, just like how it was in the first one. They do a like in the first game, one of the fun abilities is you get turned into a chicken, and in that game it was pretty much so you can like go under small spaces. And this one, your chicken gets his own abilities, so you're kind of going between these two forms a lot more. But yeah, I enjoyed that. It was fun to play. So, well, I guess I was just playing a lot of indie Metroidvania games.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
That's where I am in my life.
Yeah, I know. I don't blame you. I think that's a good way to live that life.
So that's like the cool stuff I played at GDC. Did I talk about Kirby with you?
No, I've been wondering because I think Jason got a review copy. I was wondering if you even played. I
reviewed it.
Okay, yes, I was going to go back because I think I got so busy during GDC week that I could
never read my stuff. Stop coming up with excuses.
No, this is my excuse, and you're going to accept it at face value. I wonder if Mike wrote that review. I should go check that out eventually at some point, and I never did. So this is Kirby Star Allies for Switch. It's the first Kirby Switch game. Is it good?
No.
Oh, fuck. All right. Glad I didn't just buy it blindly.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer for me.
This stinks because like every Kirby game that comes out over the last couple of years, it feels like some of them are like very, very good.
Yeah, well, the two they made for the 3DS I actually liked a lot. Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot.
Right.
Largely because they actually did some kind of interesting level design things. They played with the 3D aspect really well. Not just literally with the popping in, but kind of like having him go between two planes, introducing new mechanics and stuff like that. And then Robobot had the whole robot thing. Well, like, this game's weird because their gimmick is that it has 4-player co-op. But there was the Kirby game for Wii that had 4-player co-op. The difference is that, like, you turn the enemies into your allies, like the other players, kind of like with Kirby Superstar, except you can do it to, like, with up to 4 people. And if you're not playing with anyone, they have AI that follows you around, and the AI is fine. But you know how there's the Kirby stereotype of it being like a little too easy.
Yeah.
This is a really too easy. I mean, like it's not doing anything clever with level design. It's mostly linear. If anything exciting happens, it's in a bonus room, and even those, they're just puzzles that revolve around you like combining abilities. But like inside the small room, they're gonna have the 2 abilities, right? So it's like you need to flip the switch and set this thing on fire. Oh look, it's hammer and fire abilities. You know, like, you can do things like you can like combine like the elements of like abilities, so you can make your sword a fire sword and stuff like that. But it's never like used very interestingly. It was just kind of this game was really just kind of autopiloting it. It didn't seem like it was trying anything very exciting or different.
That is a bummer because it did seem like they were on a really good trajectory with what they were doing with Kirby. It was all interesting. It was all at least I think keeping Kirby fans happy. So that's a bummer. Can I ask? Do you feel bad when you beat up that tree that's just sitting there as the first boss? He's just sitting there. You could just go around.
Going back to that tree. Keep going back to that tree, man.
Yeah,
back to him a couple more times.
Every game.
Wispy Woods. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because it made me think because we were talking about how like they should just release games that would come out for the 3DS on the Switch and that's okay. But there was like something kind of weird about like here's the new Kirby games, Kirby's first Switch game, and I'm like this is just like the 3DS games. Yeah. And beside the point that it wasn't as good, like let's pretend it was as good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, would this still almost be a bummer? Because it's weird because it's like new Zelda game, like monumental moment for the series. New Mario game, monumental moment for the series. New Kirby game, it's the worst one in a while. You know, it's
Yeah.
just, it's weird.
Yeah, yeah, I think yes, that narrative really sucks because that is what happened.
And here's the problem: like Nintendo making these kind of cute, like 2D games that are very like that they made a bunch of already, like Kirby. How many they made? It's flying not like especially on the Switch. It's a hard sell because we have indie developers making really good and exciting and like innovative 2D games. Like I can't imagine playing this over Celeste or Shovel Knight or just like a million other things, you know. And this is a $60 game. You beat it in 5 hours and it sucks.
Yeah, that was one of
the but
that was the big thing. I'm like, I'm gonna go just check out the eShop. I'm gonna look and see what that Kirby game's at. I'm like, it's probably gonna be like $30.
I can't believe
and I was
full price. That's the mini games are almost comically stupid.
Right.
One of them is literally just like you know how in like a baseball video game or like in a golf game, right? To swing you have like the meter.
Yeah.
One of the mini games is just like a golf style meter. And it's like, see if you do that better than your friends.
Oh man!
No,
that's really?
One of the mini games. Oh, it's rough. Oh, don't worry though. You can use the Joy-Con and actually swing it instead of push a button.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. That's game changing. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's real. So, how does Nintendo exist? Like, how is a company able to do everything right for so many different things and then release a game like this?
There is a part of me, and it's a cynical part of me that who knows this based on anything. That's like Nintendo knew what we knew. Like, man, they really front loaded the Switch's release schedule, and they knew they weren't going to have much.
So they're just like
Kirby, we can make one of those pretty quickly, right?
Don't you have one of those Kirby games just sitting in a drawer right now? Yeah, we just put that one out. All right, yeah, maybe.
What can we do? It's 4 players again. Maybe, sure. Like that's how it kind of, that's why I'm a little nervous about this Yoshi game. Also, I don't know.
Yeah, I am not. Right, I'm not getting my hopes up for any of those games that were announced like that. Specifically Yoshi. Kirby, I was like, I mean, Kirby, they were already doing it on 3DS. They kind of knew what they were doing. Maybe there was something they could do special for the Switch, and that'll be in Star Allies, and that'll be cool. So I was like, okay, that could work. But Yoshi, I have no confidence in them getting that right, because they just have not done so since Yoshi's Island. That's everything they've done with that character.
Like, I played through and beat that Wii U Yoshi game. I could not tell you much of anything about it.
Right,
like,
yes. I think I did too,
That's such a blur. I was like, that was a game.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's disappointing about what's weird about Kirby is the final boss fight was really cool, and every like new and exciting idea was only in that. Like it was a pretty good final boss fight. And like,
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see how a lot of these other games turn out. Hopefully we get hopefully they just have one of these flubs every once in a while, and they figure everything else out.
Yeah, I mean, sure, Nintendo's never going to not make like mediocre games every now and then.
Right. But it's just I don't know. It feels like they don't have to if they really wanted to. They could have figured something out here and probably really nailed it still. So who knows what forces them to think like, oh, let's just put this one out. Okay. So, any other games? I guess real quick. Tell me about playing your new PC and the games you've been playing on there. Because last time we talked, you hadn't had it set up yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I got it set up, and the games I was playing were like Overwatch and World of Warcraft, which weren't super graphically intensive. So I'm like, what can I put on here? Oh, they have that Wolfenstein 2 game installed. Jeff likes that. Well, I can finally play that. Hey, yeah, you're right. It's a pretty good game.
It's a good game, man. Yeah,
I like that.
Glad you played it.
Looks really good on a computer too.
Yep, and you got a 4K monitor and everything, so you were like really.
Yeah, I got a 4K monitor. I got a Titan. What X is it called?
XP maybe. Yeah, maybe. Pascal like X. Yeah.
I'm firing on a lot of cylinders here.
Apparently, yeah. It's a good game. I'm glad you got to play it and got to play it on PC, which is probably the right way to play that right now. Even on consoles, it was kind of not the best. Sure. Okay, so let's get into the news. That was a pretty good upfront section. Fortnite and then a bunch of games, and GDC. So Okay, this first story it does come from GDC. I was wondering if any of you guys had like attended this one, or if you guys had heard any of the rumblings
I
here.
wasn't at this. I mean,
Okay, so
it was kind of the talk of the show in
yeah,
a
it
lot of
does. It
ways.
was as far as I could tell, but you were at the show, and were people talking about it like at the show or like at
Well,
events?
yeah. Well,
Yeah, we
this
should.
is the union thing.
Right. So okay. So Game Workers Unite. This was a. It's an upstart organization that seems to have come into being over the last couple of weeks. I know that the people that actually organized it have been talking about it, working toward it for a bit now. But what happened was the leader of the IGDA, which is the International Game Developers Association, which is ostensibly a organization that lobbies and tries to enact policies that are pro game developer. This is different than the ESA, which is a lobbying group for the video game industry and represents basically the biggest game corporations in the world, right. Ubisoft and EA and all them. And the leader of the IGDA, they held a panel about unions, and it was like something titled like game unions, like how they're good and how they're bad for you, or something like that. And that seemed to get a pretty visceral response just from that description before GDC even started. And so these people that were already organizing a pro union group for game developers put it out there and said, hey, we're going to show up and we're going to have some literature, some pamphlets for people to read why it's important. And apparently have a Discord, and that Discord blew up over the last couple of weeks with just a ton of people. And this all culminated in that conversation, that talk happening at GDC. And it basically was what a lot of people were worried about, concern trolling. This person saying, oh, we're just worried that the unions could do this or that, when really they're like, no, you don't want unions because developers, in general don't want them. At least the leadership, the management of developers don't want them. And she was up there alone with this sentiment. And everyone else in the room was kind of saying, hey, it's pro-union. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. Now is the time for game developers to unionize. And it seemed like coming out of this event, there is a ton of momentum for this idea. And it seems like for the first time, maybe it is realistic that game developers could come together and start to begin to collectively bargain with publishers as one solid block. So yeah, my question was this something people were talking about at the event itself?
Oh yeah. A lot of people were discussing this thing at the event. A lot of the other journalists too. I have to admit, my own sort of knowledge of unions is maybe not as impressive as my knowledge of Mega Man.
I mean, who isn't that true for, Mike? Of course. Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah. I mean, you're not alone. Like, it's we're in a time when. Most people aren't in a union. Most people don't even most people work at jobs where it's not even a possibility or an option. Even in some forms of work where it is an option and it is popular, like my wife's a teacher and she's in the union, but most of the teachers she works with in Colorado aren't and don't really understand why a union is necessary. And this is all due to years of union busting in terms of local governments trying to break them apart and find ways to not have to deal with them, as well as people legislators putting in laws to make unions more difficult to run. So people have just sort of forgotten a lot of the benefits, but it seems like there are a lot of active people in game development right now that do understand it and have the passion and have the drive to make it happen. And I mean, in these conversations, did anyone sound fearful, or was it just most people?
No, I think most people were kind of excited about the prospect of it, right?
Yeah.
It seems to be. I mean, most people I talk to, right, are journalists or smaller developers. So
right.
It's you can see why they're excited about it. But yeah, it's hard to. I am kind of interested to see if this does go somewhere. If it's kind of just more of a start, or if it's a fast start. I hope it's not something that we don't talk about again until next GDC.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's it's not just a marathon; it is a never-ending treadmill, because you always have to be pushing, because it's an organization and it's in the name. Things don't organize on their own. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of people to organize anything, let alone a disparate group of people working at a bunch of different video game companies. And that doesn't even bring up that like there is definitely going to be some confirmation bias, I think, in the response to this, where the people that really care about the idea of unionizing were going to show up for this talk, and they were going to be the ones making the noise. And maybe there are still, I think, quite a few of developers who consider themselves like maybe libertarians, or like, oh, we don't need collective bargaining. I'll just stand on my own. I don't need the help of anyone else. I can get a job wherever, and I can fend for myself. And people are allowed to feel that way, but it feels like that group that definitely exists is probably not being heard right now because they don't feel a need to stand up and speak because no one has suggested a union at their job yet. And once that happens, maybe they will speak out and say, I don't want to have to pay union dues because I don't want a union. And if it can kind of like deal with that hurdle, I think that'll be the first good test to see if people can convince their coworkers that this is a good idea. And hopefully we start to hear about that soon and kind of see where this goes. And before we move on, were there any other stories at GDC that people were talking about? Was anyone talking about loot boxes, anything like that? Or have we completely forgotten about all that?
People weren't talking about loot boxes too much. I mean, Fortnite was kind of pretty impressive there, I guess you could say. It was interesting. It was interesting to see how little of a presence VR had this time.
Right.
It was in like the one hall where like all the big companies are, like where Oculus and Epic are, but it wasn't like how it was like last year, especially 2 years ago, right? Where it's like all you could find.
Okay, well, let's we got just 2 more news stories. Let's hit these and maybe call the show. Sure. We've been going for a bit now. So I guess I would probably say this was the biggest story of last week. Ubisoft has reached an agreement with Vivendi to get out of that hostile takeover. So Vivendi had, over the last several years, acquired somewhere in the range of like 20 to 30% of the outstanding shares for Ubisoft. So it owned a sizable portion. And its stated goal for quite some time, was to take over control 51% of Ubisoft. This was a hostile takeover because Ubisoft was not trying to sell any shares to Vivendi. Vivendi was going out and buying shares from other people who had acquired the stock and getting control that way. And so it was a slow process. It was like a slow-moving train wreck, especially for Yves Guillemot, who is the leader of Ubisoft. And this was something we could see that was obviously like wearing the leadership of Ubisoft down. Like during the press conferences at E3, we would see Yves come out on stage and he'd be like, "Oh, we are still fighting. We are going to be Ubisoft, and no matter what, our games will be our games." And he'd come out and say that stuff, and he would never mention anything by name, but everyone knew what he's talking about. So this agreement basically is, Vivendi will sell all of its shares of Ubisoft, some back to Ubisoft in a stock buyback program, some to a corporation owned by Yves and his brother, and some to the Ontario Teachers Union or Teachers Group, like the retirement pension plan. And then the last group is Tencent, the giant Chinese mega company that has basically acquired all of gaming at this point.
Right.
They own 48% of Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, creators of the Unreal Engine. They own all of Riot Games, creators of League of Legends. So the 2 biggest games in the world, League of Legends and Fortnite.
Just those ones.
Yeah, and then like they own, I think they own Supercell, who create Clash of Clans. So it's like, also the biggest mobile games. Yeah, they own a huge swath of gaming worldwide. And now with this deal, as part of this, it's a minority stake in Ubisoft. Tencent will start bringing some of Ubisoft's games into China, which is something that, not just Ubisoft, every major publisher has a hard time with, because there are regulations and laws and cultural barriers and artificial monopolies that are protected by the government, and Tencent controls those. And so this is a kind of a win scenario, because Ubisoft is going to maintain control. They're going to get rid of Vivendi. They're going to get into China, and this new investor, Tencent, is unlikely to ever want to take over all of Ubisoft. It's just not how it's not how most Chinese companies operate, and Tencent has stuck to that sort of style of acquisition so far, where they're like, no, we'll invest a lot, we'll get near 50%, but we're not going to cross that barrier. We still want the people who ran this company to have a controlling stake. So it's kind of all good news for Ubisoft.
For pretty much for everybody. I mean,
Right.
even
Vivendi walked away with a
Vivendi's
ton of
still-
money.
Yeah, so
Yep.
it's all good for people who
People who have money, they have more of it now,
for
Mike.
them.
Yeah.
My prospects haven't changed, but
Yeah. We're still doing okay, but not quite that good. All right. Finally, Valve has 1,700 CPUs working nonstop to bust Counter-Strike Go cheaters. That's an astronomical number of CPUs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just thought this was an interesting story to okay, that kind of maybe puts in perspective what a cheating problem looks like, or a solution to a cheating problem looks like. CS:GO has, it's one of the more recent games that has dealt with this for a long period of time and has proven no, it doesn't ever really go away, and there's no way to make it go away for good.
I remember playing Counter-Strike in 90 or 99, and people were talking about wall hacks and stuff.
Yes.
Like
Okay.
that.
Yes. Yeah. Even then.
Nothing changes.
Yep. So when you look at a game like PUBG and now Fortnite's going to end up having similar problems.
Yeah. It's interesting how with Overwatch, you don't ever hear about you hear about toxicity problems. You don't hear about people talking about a cheating problem.
You don't hear them. You're right. I definitely remember a period where aimbots were a thing, and I think Blizzard sued somebody over it. Maybe that wasn't Blizzard, but it's never been as pervasive as CS:GO and PUBG. You know what that could be is that in PUBG and CS:GO you earn in-game things that are worth money that you could sell on Steam.
Yeah.
And then you can there's our third-party sites where you can sell that stuff for real money. So there's a motivation there to be in the game and cheating because you might get something out of it. There's a monetary profit to be had. And that isn't in Fortnite and that isn't in Overwatch. So maybe that's the difference. And I wonder if that, more than anything else, will have to start making these companies rethink, having real money involved in their loot box situation. Because I don't think they're going to go away from it unless it's hurting their game in some very permanent and decisive way. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for the show. Yeah, that was a good meaty episode. We'll come back next week. I think, what is it? Next week is going to be the beginning of April, right? So should we...
Boy.
Yeah, it's going to be April 2nd or 3rd.
We're talking about the best games of March.
Yeah, so I was going to say, maybe we should, this week, you and I should, maybe talk about if there's any games that we should definitely play before next week so we can have an idea. So we'll talk about that next week. The big games, they're coming out right now. Far Cry 5, we've already talked about that. There's some more coming up soon. How far away is that God of War?
It's April, isn't it?
Feels like, I feel like it's coming up fast.
It's coming up. Whoa, that's exciting.
Yeah, so we're getting into it still. So games are happening. We'll be there to make sure that all the decisions are made about them. In the meantime, we're gonna get out of here. Mike, tell everybody where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me at Fortnite if you feel like you're man enough. No, you can find me at GamesBeat. I'm always writing there, or at Twitter at Tolkoto. That's TOLKOTO. We also do the Exploding Barrel podcast every week with my brother. That's ebpodcast.com.
I need to play Fortnite with you. All right, I wish I could play against you. I wish there was a way to do that, but no.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm Jeff Grubb on Twitter, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb, and twitch.tv/Jeff Grubb. I will probably be streaming some more Far Cry 5 on PC on there in a little bit. Tomorrow night, probably tonight when you're hearing this, if you're listening to the audio version, I'm going to be blowing up a meteor in Eco. We've built our lasers. I built a huge wind farm, wind power farm. There's these huge wind turbines, as far as the eye could see. And then there's 15 gasoline power generators, and we have to have all of these turned on and all of the lights turned out to power the lasers to actually shoot the meteors. So tomorrow night we're gonna get everyone online. We're gonna shut all the lights off, gather on my tower that's right outside these lasers, and flip on the switch and see what happens. So yeah,
sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Okay, Mike, let's get out of here. I actually have a hankering to play Fortnite now, so I might see about playing that. We'll see how that goes. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Bye.